For life.
We broke the Ashley Massaro story a good hour or two before Vice a few days ago here at Wrestling Insight, and now the world is talking about the disgusting and unfair treatment that she received while with WWE under the watchful eye of good old Vince McMahon, the kind, loving, and compassionate human being and boss he is and was. Anyways, just like I talked about Ashley, I've also been talking about some of the, if you look deeper than the mainstream narrative, mysterious and alarming deaths that have taken place within WWE over the years when it has come to both retired legends and then current superstars alike. In fact, there are so many of them that it's both alarming and infuriating, prompting myself personally to look towards Vince McMahon. There's many videos in the conspiracy playlist covering some of these, and I don't plan on stopping when it comes to producing new content on them. So if you've never seen any of them here at the channel, please go back and look through those if you enjoyed this one. The single most successful video of mine here on the channel, though, has without a doubt been the one where I discussed the mysterious deaths of two of my all-time favorites, Eddie Guerrero and Chris Benoit. Let me disclaimer all of this. It sucks, but it has to be done. Anything discussed here in this video and any of my videos is all for entertainment purposes and mental stimulation. They are theories that ask you to question the mainstream narrative. Am I right on all of this stuff? I don't say I am. So don't take everything said as the gospel. Just enjoy and take in the inconsistencies and the many questionable pieces of the puzzle that don't fit, and consider a possibility that maybe you haven't before so you can do your own research. Okay, now that that's done and over with, I think it's time to revisit the channel's most popular topic thus far and go a little bit more in depth with what's terribly off and wrong when it comes to the deaths of these two legends, especially Chris Benoit. I mentioned Chavo Guerrero in my first video. You know, that guy who's in Hollywood all of a sudden and also had a spike in his career after Eddie's death. And I mentioned how Chavo has backtracked and changed his story several times. He said that he heard fighting in the house when he went to visit the Benoit family, and Chris proceeded to answer the door sounding weird. Well, if that's the case, why didn't you dig further and make sure he and everyone there was okay? Why didn't you tell someone else this sooner, Chavo? Then he one time mentioned that he personally saw a scuffle only to have that redacted. Now, who supposedly found Eddie's body? Oh, that's right. Chavo Guerrero did. This is something I should have pointed out in the first video that I believe I missed, but just think about that and let that sink in for a minute, okay? I also didn't mention the fact that Chris Benoit, and this has been confirmed by many people, had been acting very paranoid lately as far as his family's safety and his own safety. He changed cars and routes home that he took constantly, went personally to pick up his son from school, and always made sure to ask the teachers if they noticed anything strange. Now, that sounds like a man who is suspicious that someone is trying to take him and his family out, not someone who's about to do that very thing himself. And with several people already knowing Chris was worried, Chavo being so close to Chris's inner circle, I'm sure that he was one of those people. We're just to believe he walked off and said, screw it, when he heard and even saw, according to him, scuffling in the house and Chris answering the door seeming off. Come on, bro. Come on now. Chavo has continued to change bits and pieces of his story on Chris's death, and he's also added bits and pieces here and there to his story, even for his Uncle Eddie as the years have gone by. He went on Chris Jericho's podcast and revealed, again, this years after Eddie's death, that Eddie had just recently almost gotten into a fight with Michael Hayes, who was part of the creative team for SmackDown at the time, I believe, right before Eddie passed away. Chavo also claims that Eddie needed to talk to him about something shortly before his death, but Chavo was too busy to talk at the moment. I mean, here's another why. Why did you wait so long to add that little piece to the story of your uncle's death? If you thought something was suspicious, even in the slightest back then, why didn't you say something then? And aside from Chavo that I think we need to look closer at, I think we also need to dive a little bit deeper into the neighbor and family friend, Holly. Hasn't it been discovered that she's Kevin Sullivan's cousin? I may have mentioned that in the first video, but if not, there you go. She's Kevin Sullivan's cousin. She's family, at least, some relation. And after the deaths of the Benoits, guess what? She moved back across country closer to Kevin. Yeah. She had access to the house. When she was supposed to get the dogs under control for the welfare check, she instead ran upstairs to the bodies when she wasn't supposed to. She also said in her 911 call that Nancy was strangled, but how would she know when she supposedly didn't check the basement? So why would she mention it? She took longer than expected during the welfare check, and who knows? She could have tampered with the evidence in the long span of time that she took. Then let's not forget that Chris's diary was in the trash and there were beer cans everywhere while Chris didn't drink. What's the cover up for that? Oh, they just had a cookout that past Friday. Well, that doesn't sound like someone that is about to do the things Chris is accused of doing. But it also doesn't sound like someone that's changing cars and routes and checking on his kids at school to make sure they're okay either. You know what? The beer cans and the cookout story both just sound out of place and fabricated. Like most other things, in this case, that the negligent police department in Fayetteville, Georgia, closed abruptly. Just so many things that aren't adding up and never did. In fact, the lead medical examiner in Georgia at the time was forced to resign a few years ago due to corruption. For example, the autopsy claimed in Chris's death that Benoit was heavily sedated. If so, how did he lift the weights to off himself? They never documented the amount of weight used either. Vice, not saying you were watching my channel before your news broke the other day on Ashley Massaro, but if you are watching my channel, you need to cover Chris Benoit and Eddie Guerrero's deaths and all of the mysteries and questions surrounding them. And while you're at it, you could also look at Chris Benoit's former tag team partner Biff Wellington's death as well. He died the exact same day that Chris did, in the exact same manner that Eddie Guerrero did. We need to bring this tragedy back to light so this case can be reopened and justice for Chris Benoit and his family and people like Daniel Benoit who have been blacklisted unfairly from the wrestling business can be rightfully served. Thank you for watching. If you liked the video, please hit that thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, ring the bell so you're sure not to miss content like this in the future. I have a ton of it in the works. Until next time, guys, love yourselves and each other.